Hello and welcome everyone. We're very pleased to see you here today. My name is Astrid Raffin-Pelloz, and I'm very excited to offer this soul care program with Jakob Vermeulen from Song Dance. I want to give you a little bit of history of Volunteer Hospice. It was founded by a nurse, Rose Crumb, in 1978 in the USA, in Washington State, on the Olympic Peninsula, for those of you who may want to come and visit. It's a beautiful area. We are literally a unicorn in the hospice world, and that is because we offer nursing care without billing Medicare. And we are local, we're independent. We don't bill Medicare, we don't bill any other insurance company, and we certainly do not bill our patients. To give you an idea of how unique we are, I know of only 5 other hospices in the USA who offer hospice care without billing Medicare or anyone else. This gives us a lot of flexibility. We can offer a lot of different services besides palliative care and hospice care. We have a medical equipment landing closet. We have a strong grief and bereavement program. And we have this program called the Soul Care, which consists of this speaker series and a two monthly desk cafes called Tea to Die For. All our services are open to the entire community, which means one does not have to be enrolled in our hospice to benefit from equipment, grief support, or educational programs like this one. We've always been free and we rely on donations. I want to quickly mention the next speaker series, Wednesday, May 14th, with Terry Daniel on bereavement and theology. And the details are on our website on volunteerhospice.org under the Soul Care program. But today, I'm particularly excited to have Jakob Vermeulen, and the talk today is called The Voice of Grief. Voice is very personal to me, and so I reached out to Jakob, and he was willing to come and do a series here. And as he says, throughout history, in nearly all traditional human cultures, sound and singing have played a vital role in processing emotions, particularly in the grieving process. In an experiential and engaging session, Jakob will introduce a framework that explores why the voice is such a powerful tool for navigating grief. He will also address why, sadly, many people today have lost confidence to use their voice in this way. Drawing from his personal journey of coping with loss and the transformative role sound played in his healing, Jakob will exemplify the profound impact of this practice. He has also developed a unique method to help others reconnect with their voice. During the session, you will be guided through a practical and accessible exercise to rediscover your voice and the healing potential it holds. He is a musician, a singer, a composer, and a somatic vocal healing educator with over a decade of experience in this field. Through his company, Song Dance, he organizes trainings, retreats, and creates innovative tools to share the restorative power of music with others. Jakob, we are so happy that you had some time to share with us, and I'm going to let you take it from here.
Thank you so much, Astrid. Thank you to you and the whole team of the hospice, and I think it's so amazing. When you contacted me to do something with you guys, I was just so touched by the beautiful work that you're doing. And I will go into my story a little bit later, but just this already, I was able to be so close to Pala at her bedside when she passed, and I can only imagine that people who are not in the possibility to be at home, that it's so amazing to have a place like you are creating together with a team, and that's so special. And doing that from a place of volunteering without relying on systems is just beautiful. So I'm so happy to be able to share my little contribution today, and welcome to everyone here. I'm so amazed with the beautiful turnout and to see all of your beautiful faces. So a warm welcome to everyone on this evening. Thank you, or day for you. Is my audio and video coming through okay? Yes? Okay, Great. Perfect. I love to start with a little bit of piano playing. And even before that, I love to start with a full deep breath into the nose, out to the mouth that we can all do, because it just helps to release what you don't need in this moment and to just arrive and settle here and now. So let's all take a full deep breath in and out. And as you hear from my out breathing, I make a little bit of sound with it. Just it's really nice, allowing the nervous system already to relax. So let's breathe in again. Yes. And then allow me to play a little bit of piano for you so you can settle and arrive in this space. And let's all take another full deep breath into the nose, out through the mouth. My webcam. Now let's. Yeah, so thank you again and welcome everyone for joining. And it's good to be here. And I have to say, when I'm invited to talk on a topic like this, obviously it's always bringing up stuff for me because it is a subject that directly affects me. For those who don't know, I went through a loss, great loss myself, and I want to share with you about my story, my process, knowing very well that every story, every grief is unique. Every mourning is unique. Every process around death is unique. So this is just my story. But I want to share with you because I think it holds some value because it does touch on certain universal principles that might be applicable to your process if you have a process of grief, especially when it comes down to certain tools such as the use of the voice. That is just something that everyone can benefit from. That is not unique to me. We all have a voice. So I do want to be a voice's advocate and share about the power of the voice with you today, and hopefully invite you to step into that beautiful realm of being able to use your voice to work consciously with your grief. Because this is a series offered by a hospice which helps people, transition. I'm sure here present today are people who have lost someone or are in the process of saying goodbye to someone or have lost someone a long time ago. And there might be people here who don't have much experience with loss. So I just want everyone to be welcome, whether you're just curious or whether you're directly affected by loss in your life. You feel welcome. And also this, that when a loss is very fresh, as in 6 months, very fresh, very raw, don't worry too much about what anyone will say, including me, because that's just, first, the shock. You need to get over the shock before you can even think about maybe bringing in a tool such as the voice, unless you really feel that you resonate with it and you want to bring it in already in the first moment. It's also important to just honor that first, that first time when that happens. If at any point you have questions, you want to ask something, feel free to put something in the chat or click the raise hand button, as was already mentioned. So without further ado, let's dive in. I have to rewind a little bit because the story of loss is always the story of life first. And there's something really special if you think about that. There can't be great loss without great life. And I find that quite poetic. There's people dying every second, and we go about our lives, aren't we? And then there's someone dying close to us, who we might have a beautiful, loving relationship with or very difficult relationship with. And then suddenly it affects us greatly. So it's not so much death in itself that is here to talk about, but the life. What was the life that was lived, and your connection, and all the stories involved. That's what's important, because that's going to be so impacting your way of grieving, amongst other factors. So the life that was before my loss is the life where I met Karen Upala. Upala was actually her spiritual name. And it's a story of love. It's a story of two souls recognizing each other, meeting each other in this lifetime. Now I feel comfortable saying this. I would not have said that maybe a little time ago, but I really feel we had some kind of almost an agreement to experience something together and each have an aspect of that experience. And I would never say something like that to someone else. I think it's my right to say that for myself because it's my experience, it's my life. But I would not recommend saying that to someone in grief because it's the best way to help someone bypass their pain is to say, yeah, but it's all meant to be. It's part of a greater plan. Sure, but let's be with the pain first before realizing that greater plan. But I can say that about myself. Now, here and now. So yeah, we met. And it was a beautiful, beautiful meeting of souls. And before long, we had 2 years of relationship. We started song dance together. And we made ourselves independent, self-employed. So it was a very big leap. Let's do this. And just 2 months after we both did that, Upala was diagnosed with a brain tumor, high 4th degree, so very aggressive brain tumor. So yeah, that was a huge shock, and we couldn't. We tried all sorts of alternative ways as that goes, in the beginning. So much resistance against with alternative spiritual people, you often have that, a resistance against the system, and we will not do chemo, and we will not do this, and we will not do that. And in the end, it was a beautiful story of surrendering and also following the flow, and therefore meeting so much love and people that are capable of so much love within the system. There's loving people everywhere. So that was a little revelation along the way. So in the end, she had the surgery, and that went really well. But in that process of her illness, in a couple of months, the tumor grew so fast before the surgery actually happened that she lost her speech and she couldn't talk anymore. And this is so amazing because that actually formed the foundation of the whole work I bring now into the world, and we started bringing into the world together. And Upala was such a special being, special person, because she was able to have the strength to make sound for her raw emotions in a way that I did not think was possible, in a way that I thought humanity maybe had lost somewhere hundreds of years ago around the campfires. I had a vague idea that people in the tribes probably were expressing their emotions like that, but in the civilized world, I didn't think it was possible, but she could. And there was this particular moment, and I've said this before, some people have heard this, but shortly before the surgery, I helped Upala to get to the hospital stairwell, and there she would just make sounds, not singing, not trying to achieve anything of beauty, but just making sound, giving sound to her feelings, to her raw emotions. And that was the first time I heard anybody do something like that. It was profoundly life-changing for me. And at that time, I didn't quite know what it was yet, but something changed. And I'm just going to mute. There we go. Yeah. Something changed in that moment. And for her, in that moment as well, because what happened, because of making those sounds and being utterly present with her feelings, because that's what sound making does. It brings the truth, it brings the feeling, it brings the emotion right here. It gives the nervous system a chance not to bottle up, hold it in, but bring it out. So you both express, and because you listen to what is expressed, you also acknowledge. And in that beautiful combination of expressing and acknowledging, stillness comes, peace comes, trust comes, understanding comes. So she went into the surgery in peace with full focus, an 8-hour surgery, and she was laser sharp. She was a hero in that surgery, both her and the surgeons. But, you know, these type of tumors tend to be very aggressive, so the doctor said it's a great success and comma, you have 1 year to live, full stop. That was basically the bottom line. So, you know, that was it. So we started some weeks of rehabilitation, and eventually we came home. You know, with Upala, who was still very weak, still had huge, tremendous difficulty to speak, could utter a few words, but was confusing yes and no, and then very difficult. And but just enough to have a very slow, basic conversation. And I asked her, you know, what do you want to do with your life, with that 1 year you have? And she said, I want to travel and I want to spread the power of sound with the world. And that's what we did. So we started with the only money we still had, we bought a little trailer that we could put behind our car, which had a folding tent. And so we went on an adventure. And to our surprise, that spreading sound with the world became a very, very big success. And through the joy that generated, as well as the finances, we were able to travel to really nice places, meet awesome people, musicians, and that created so much joy and so much purpose. And we reached thousands of people, not yet with the really refined sound modality that exists now, with a more earlier version, because these things take time to understand. It's something really new, actually, in the way it is used, sound. So we didn't understand it yet back then, but still we were able to do something of the sorts with music and singing, more than that pure sound making for emotions that happens now. And we lived 4 years, 4 happy, amazing years. And then, you know, she felt, I think, a little bit tired after 4 years. It was almost like an energy that I can now understand more as I did what I did and still here and not further. That was a little bit the vibe. And so she wanted to return home. But home was also where, you know, I guess the triggers were, the family. You know, I'm not going into process here because whatever the reason and whatever exists in terms of causalities with cancer is a whole other topic. Maybe in 10, 20 years I might dive into it, but not today. But it was clear that her soul somehow didn't have that same longing, like she really wanted to spread the power of sound with the world, and we did so in 4 years, at least a big first wave, and she felt complete with that. And so we returned home, and 3 months later, she was no longer in the physical being. And those 3 months were super difficult. Because you know, you lose the person you love, you lose the woman you married, you know, you lose your business partner, your friend. And for a long time, I only remembered those last 3 months, which had beautiful moments, as most people will say who are privileged to be at the bedside of someone transitioning. Most people will find that a great honor, and so do I. But seeing your loved one lose their capacity for everything, seeing them become a living skeleton, losing all their weight and all of that is very hard, not being able to communicate anymore, and so forth and so on. So that was very difficult. And yeah, that's a little bit the story until that moment in time. And then the grief it didn't kick in there. It actually started already in that 4-year period, because the soul is an interesting, wise little thing, because the soul knows things that the mind doesn't or doesn't want to know. And I realize now that my grieving in a way already started, long time before she passed. There was maybe a deeper understanding or knowing what was going to happen. And so many times some levels of goodbyes might have already happened on some level. So the grieving didn't start when she transitioned. But it definitely heightened. It definitely was like a huge difference in it's like it had built up already, and then the valves went open, and so I would find myself at night waking up, just cry sounding, and it would be these waves, and then it would calm down again, and it would be actually pretty okay, and then it would come a wave again, and cry sounding. And I really believe, and I have Upala to thank for that this cry sounding that I would love to talk to you about today helped me to make sure that never any part of the grief could remain stuck in my body. I really believe that. And I believe thanks to that, I was able to go through that. I don't like to use the word fast. That's not... In the most optimal way. Like it came, the waves came, and I was able to attend them very, very presently with sound, and the wave could just roll through me. The tears did what they did, the sound did what they did, and then the wave is past, and you have again a period of calm sea. Yeah. And also having a purpose. I didn't fall into... At first, and I think this is normal, I wanted to stop everything. I was about to, stop song dance, do something completely different, move abroad, like these ideas. But luckily I didn't do that, because something had started, and I had found that, picked up that purpose again and continued with song dance, because, she left a legacy, and I wanted to continue with that legacy. I found that important. And I'm very grateful I did, because ever since, so much beauty has happened. New love has come into my life. New life has come into my love. I'm now a father. I'm now a father of a 6-month-old baby. A beautiful woman, also a soulmate, came into my life. A whole different story, completely uncomparable, but I'm able to live that life fully without feeling guilty. There is pings and things going on here which distract me. I'm just going to change that, please. Otherwise... Okay. Yeah. Without feeling guilty or ashamed, I have felt those feelings, and also I was able to attend those with sound. Yeah. So that's a little bit about my story. Maybe I take a little pause here to see if there's any questions, or, in the chat, or people that want to unmute and share or ask.
I'm not seeing questions in the chat, but I'm seeing comments on your story, and from people who either knew that story or had met Impala. It's very powerful. Vicky, you raised your hand.
I'm in a threshold choir and I've also done hospice training. Thank you so much for sharing what you just shared with us. What I wanted to ask you is one of the beautiful things I find about being at the bedside of people who are palliative is there's a lot that gets stripped away that doesn't matter. You know, it just turns into this, it can turn into this raw, beautiful place that transcends so much of this material world. And I think people that find death difficult can hardly understand that when we say, you know, they think it's kind of morbid what we do. But it is so nourishing to be there, and it is such sacred space. She was so fortunate to have you by her and she by you, of course. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vicky. I agree, and there's a whole other talk I could have, and I'm sure many people here could have as well about their experience and, you know, about the amazing experience of that. And that was also a whole story in itself because it was very, very special actually. Also with community support, but I'm not going into that right now because it would lead us too far. But thank you so much, Vicky.
So there is a question here, which is also possibly a whole other discussion. There's a lot to unpack in that question, but there it is. When there are many losses, how do you address them and not be overwhelmed?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe it's okay to get overwhelmed.
There, possibly, and sometimes we can't help it. Yeah.
I feel with sound, I've actually honestly never seen anyone get overwhelmed as long as you keep sounding. And it's not just any sound, it's a specific way of sounding which works with the nervous system, which is able to continuously channel the energy out, and not goes into freeze and stuck and holding in, or goes and it neither does it go into like fight or too much like a scream. Like it stays clear of both those extremes. So you wanna, in nervous system terms, you wanna stay ventral with your grief. You wanna stay safe and connected. And it's very difficult because we have taught, society has taught us to actually hide, to put your hands in front of your face, to put the face down, to have the chest go like that. So it's quite the opposite that should happen. And in ancient cultures, and maybe some still today, quite the opposite goes. You open the heart, you raise to the heavens, and the voice goes out, and it's quite this. And so if you can allow a continuous ventral flow of sound, connected and safe, which sounds paradoxical because it's a raw feeling, so it feels like, you know, it might be threatening, but if you can stay soft with that intense feeling and continuously let it out with your sound, overwhelm is not there. Overwhelm happens when the energy builds and builds and it gets stuck. There's no way for it to get out. It's like a steam cooker, and you have the lid on it, and you keep on adding heat and more heat and more heat. Well, at one point it's going to explode. But you can take the lid off and let the steam out. So I hope that's an answer to your question.
Elka, you have raised your hand. Hello.
Hi. I had something to respond to about that. Is that okay to respond to what you just said?
Absolutely.
I had an experience of very deep grief about 6 months ago. And I found that what was most helpful for me was to allow a sounding that was not exactly a scream. There was this sound that just wanted to keep coming out. And it wasn't exactly a scream, but it was more like a birthing sound. It sounded like a birthing sound. It sounded like I was giving birth. And every now and then it would just kind of like sweep in, and I'd have to just kind of submit to it and allow it to come through. And it was overwhelming, but it allowed movement in my body, and it allowed the processing that needed to happen. And I had no idea how long it was going to last, that, you know, how long I was going to have to, and then, you know, and of course I had been scheduled to go stay with my mother for a while, like a few weeks after this had started. And I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I have to delay my trip. But anyway, like, it was very important to my process to allow that when it wanted to come, to allow like the intensity to not be so like regulated, to just like allow the crazy sound to come out. So I
Yeah.
wondered if you had
And when
anything.
you say it was overwhelming, do you mean that in a way that it was too much at one point? Or do you mean it in a way that you almost entered a trance state?
It wasn't overwhelming because I knew that it wasn't too much. I knew I could handle it. I always felt like, oh, this is what's supposed to be
Yeah.
happening.
So
Yeah.
then I think the term overwhelm is maybe not appropriate. Because overwhelm would be that it's too much. It's
Right.
overwhelm. It's too, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
so happy that you share the word, especially like a birthing sound, and how amazing is it to think about, you know, death and new life. One of the most powerful, no, I think the most powerful things that can happen in a life are these two, and so that sound shares characteristics. You know, it's I think it's true. It is like that. It is like
It,
that.
it, it felt like I gave birth to a new version of myself that had a greater capacity to feel everything, joy and grief.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm here also in the company of Daniela Hess. Maybe you can wave to the camera. Let me just spotlight you for a second, Daniela, so people can see you. There she is. Daniela is a very, very dear friend of mine, a very special lady, and together we actually created a course on grief. I'm going to share a little bit about in the end, specifically on with journeys to process grief with sound and with visualizations, also working with feelings that are tied to grief, such as the guilt and the regret and those type of feelings, which often are blockages for the flow of grief, like logs in the way of the stream of water. And Daniela has so much experience. She could have done the talk equally beautiful here. So thank you for being here as well, Daniela.
Thank you, Jakob. It's what an incredible conversation. It never fails to feel important for me, even to remind me, myself, that grief is a healthy, natural, and instinctive response to changes in our lives that are wanted and unwanted. Healthy, natural, and instinctive. And it yearns to do one thing: to be honored, expressed, and moved. So, Jakob, I thank you for the karmic curriculum that you have lived, that has brought, through my lens as a grief educator of decades, somatic vocal healing is the most truly impactful and potent way to honor grief. And so I thank you with all my heart for what you have brought out into the world. This is a life-changing and a life-giving practice, because grief is really for the living. And if we are still breathing, we are here to live. So it's through this practice that you share with the world that I have seen time and time again give people access to feel their aliveness once again. So I thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniela. So, always when you open your mouth, it's like, oh, I love it. So yeah, it rings true. It rings true what you say, and you speak from great experience. So thank you. And I thought about the last words that was it Elka who just spoke last. A new version of yourself that is capable of more love. I found it really, really beautiful, because that's what I felt as well. The grief cracks your heart open into a version that is capable of more love, and it's really the love for the person that, you know, as if someone is there every day, you start taking people and, you know, situations for granted. It's just habit, how people operate, you know, it's routine, and, you know, good morning, good night, good morning, good night. But then life does something that makes it not so evident anymore, because suddenly you realize, whoa, that person is not going to be there forever. And suddenly that person is no longer there. And if you can then have precious last moments at the bedside, it is incredibly the opposite of routine and taking that person for granted. It's completely polar opposite. And then that emptiness, that void that is there, gives you an opportunity to feel so much more love. And yeah, it's often almost easier to love a person that is no longer there than when they are there. So that is something to think about, and maybe to practice, to try and do it differently. Enjoy the people that are still alive, still around you, and love them as much as you would as if they're no longer there. That's something. But it really holds true. So yeah, I think it's good to now move our way into the voice. I promised you I would talk about the voice. I think that was a big introduction, but a necessary one to frame a little bit how I see grief, my story. Thank you for your sharings also, and for your questions. So let's move into the voice. And whenever I play, I often like to play just to close one part of the talk and move into the second, because I felt it helps with the integration, to not have like one thing after the other, as so often in our society we do. We're a very mental society, very cognitive society. So having a little piece of music in between just helps the nervous system relax, reset, and integrate what has been said. And always with me, whenever I use my voice, feel free to join in and make some sounds, sing along, and enjoy, or just listen and receive.
Oh.
And let's take another full deep breath in and out. And indeed, if you could pay attention to mute yourself when I'm playing, that would certainly help. Otherwise, suddenly you might be big on the screen for people and do a little solo, which is nice. But if everyone is going to do that, it's going to be very distracting. Zoom really doesn't know how to handle choir situations, unfortunately. That's for in-person experiences still. And maybe, thank God, right? Otherwise, we would do everything on Zoom. The voice, the voice, there's so much I have said and can say about the voice. So I always want to just leave it to the inspiration of the moment, what the right words are today. And I think I just want to start with acknowledging your voice and to help you remember that you have a voice and you're born with it. It's the first thing you did. Most likely, for most babies, when they are born, they make sound. And that's quite something. And I want to share something with you. It's a premiere because that's not been shown to anyone outside of the community yet. And it's a video I created. It's going to be released very soon. And it's to honor our voice and the journey of our voice from birth to purpose. So enjoy this video in premiere today here for you. Yeah. I'm going to show it now. I was there when you let out your first cry, your comfort in the dark, an innocent call for your mother. I was there as they celebrated your first words, as you laughed, squealed, and sang your way into the world. I was there too, when they told you to sing better, to be quiet, to keep your truth to yourself. And I longed to stand by you when you swallowed your anger, feeling it rage inside, when you ached to scream and cry, but chose silence instead. But my essence has remained unchanged. Whenever you need me, I am here. So you can gently open up again. To sing the songs of your ancestors, to dance around the flames of our past. Yes, I am here to speak up for what is right, to give voice to all that you are, so you can step to the front line of your being, pulsing stuck energy back into life. I am your voice, and I am here. Are you ready to meet me? Yes. So you can step to the front line of your being. What is the front line of your being? Pulsing stuck energy back into life. What energy is stuck? Is holding you back to be free, to be you, authentically you, living your purpose. Is your grief able to move? Can your voice serve as a bridge, as a boat to bring it out, to release, opening the valves? That is the invitation. And it starts with the sound of the moment. Everything starts with the sound of the moment if you're able to be present here and now with how you're feeling right now. So let me introduce you to the most basic, most fundamental, and the most rich practice of somatic vocal healing, and that is the sound of the moment. So in a moment, we will all make our sound of the moment. Your sound for how you're feeling in this moment. And there's a few rules to it. And that's something that certain people really don't like because, they would say something like, but Jakob, I've been told to be quiet all my life. And I was told to not sing in a choir because I sing out of tune. And now I'm finally here, ready to free my voice, and you're gonna give rules to me? Why can I not do whatever I want now that I'm fine? Yeah, because we should never fall into extremes. The extreme was that you were told to shut up. That's an extreme. And so the polar opposite is complete and utter freedom, which is also an extreme. And I want to bring you into the middle, into a healthy usage of your voice that is serving you. So that's why we use guidelines, because I have studied this. I've studied how the voice works with the nervous system in the best way. So, and then some people come to me and they say, Jakob, there is no sound. I breathe in, there's no sound. There must be no sound. It's just breath. There is always sound. There's always sound. Always. Trust me. But sometimes it's more comfortable that there is no sound. And you might need to give yourselves just a little push to get started. The old cars and old motorcycles had like this thing that you had to turn. Sometimes you need that a little bit. Because it's not going to come if for years, you have been pushing something into a little small box and then suddenly you're given a key to a box and you're given a tool to get the content of the box right in here in your face. That's what sound does. You have to be brave. You have to be willing to meet whatever you've been pushing away. And are you able and willing to meet how you're truly feeling? Because that has huge consequences. If you are present with how you are truly feeling, you have to admit that you might not be feeling as good as you make yourself believe. And why is that? Then you have to make changes in your life. Maybe. So that's why this voice work is very powerful, but also something that people maybe want to stay clear of, because it holds so much truth. And truth will set you free, but truth is a change maker. Truth can be, a troublemaker. So how much of truth, of your truth, are you willing to allow? And let's be soft with ourselves. Let's be soft with ourselves as well. And your sound can be soft as well. But there is always sound. So these are the guidelines. In a moment, you will ask a question, and your intention will decide whatever sound comes out. This is the way language works. You intend to say something and the words flow out. If you know multiple languages, it works in multiple languages. If you know one language, you just have to intend the message and the words come. You don't think about what words you will use to make a phrase. It just comes. Well, the same thing goes if you intend what is the sound of my anger. When you breathe in, that's what's going to come. You don't need to think about it first. Then people say to me, yeah, I already know how it's going to sound. No, you don't. Allow yourself to be surprised, because 99% sure it's going to sound very different than what you think it's going to sound like. So the guidelines are, we don't go into screaming and we don't go into breathing. So when you make sound and you do like, that's breath. We can go into a session of breath work. That's a different modality, very interesting as well to explore. But it's breath. Sound is, you have to feel that you carry the sound. Breath is like, it has a relaxing to it, but the sound is carried. Something is being carried. You hold the sound, right? So that's the rule, the guideline number one. It's not breath, it's sound, it's tonal. You make a tone. The second guideline, we don't go into screaming. It's so much, I feel I need to scream. Yes, that you could do that in a different practice when we work in another way, but we try to say soft and connected, right? Also, when you feel it so strong that your whole body wants to kind of merge with the feeling, and your face gets all No, we're trying to stay safe and connected, which means I am here, I am making the sound, and at all times I am here. I could be making the sound of my anger, and I'm still here, soft and connected. There is no re-traumatization that is possible when you remain soft and connected here and welcome the sound of heavy emotions. We don't go into the emotion. You don't merge with the anger like, and I see my father and I will give all my anger. That's a different modality. Could be interesting in some use cases, but mostly I've learned across over the years that staying soft and connected with whatever comes is most effective and efficient. So these are the guidelines. So in a moment, we will close our eyes, we will put our hands, one hand on the heart, one hand on the belly. We'll ask ourselves, how am I feeling in this moment? And then without any further thought in between, any further delay, you take one full breath in and you make a sound. Shall we try that together? Yes? Oh, you're already doing it? Some people are already doing it. I was just giving the framework. That's now, great if you're doing it already, but let's now do it together. So you can close your eyes, put one hand on the heart and one hand on the belly. And now ask the question, how am I feeling in this moment? Breathing in, making sound. And if you want to make another one, you can breathe in again and go again. Yes. And then take a full deep breath into the nose, out to the mouth. So maybe you can put in the chat, what did you hear in your sound? What did you feel while you were making the sound of the moment? And also ask yourself, were you surprised, like what your sound gave to you? Or were you really in touch with that already? Power and hesitation. That felt amazing. I was very surprised. I heard my being begging for relief. I felt afraid, and then love. I felt so happy. Wow. Relief, beginning, and peace, and surprised, big openness, presence. Very happy, crying, wailing. Wow. Thank you for sharing. I won't read everything because we are, nearly 100 people here, which is very cool. But thank you for sharing, and I read a couple of times surprised, and there is a really amazing thing that happens when you make the sound of the moment. That is that it allows the presence, becoming present of your feelings, allows for an instant shift already. So that's so cool about it, right? So just welcoming those feelings already makes them more easeful and graceful and creates an opening. And now you made one sound, and already for some people a shift is happening. This is the power. It's not a difficult practice. It's really not, but it's so powerful. And then in my trainings, in my courses, I teach people how to learn to interpret the sounds, how to be with it in an even more attentive fashion and learn the signals. When there is a fast wavering, it indicates a fear. When there is a slow wavering, it has a grief capacity. When it's sharp, there's anger in it. When it's round, it tends to gravitate towards ancestral energy. So there's many, many things that the voice can tell you if you know how to listen, if you know how to pick up the subtle signs and not so subtle signs sometimes, because, after all, humans have been, going through evolution and have trained to recognize emotions in the voice very, very, very well. So we have this innate ability to do so. I think everyone knows when you're in a room, you can't yet see the person, but you hear someone talking. Oh, that person is angry. I might just not say hello today. They're in a conversation, at work or something, and they're using their voice with a special tone, and you recognize the emotional energy in that tone of voice. So, that's a very short introduction to the sound of the moment, and then from there, it's but one change of question to get to start releasing your grief, but a whole world of allowing and to be brave, to welcome that sound that will follow after that question. That is, what is the sound of my grief? Breathing in and off you go. And as I said, it's but one question different from how am I feeling in this moment, but the sound that can come is quite powerful, as was already said, and in my experience also. I want to open it up again for questions. We still have about 20 minutes, so I just want to now also see if people have questions or want to share something after this short introduction on this method. Feel free to click the raise hand icon.
Yeah, Jacob, there was a question earlier from Deb. When you've sung today, are some of the sounds created by this moment with us?
Yes. You mean the piano? Yeah. No, I almost always improvise my pieces. Yes, that's a creation here and now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, as in the moment I started playing, the radiant heart text that came is actually a mantra I made. It's rare that I start singing a mantra. So that's suddenly what came. It was part of the mantra that exists in the song deck that I made, which is a little card deck with 36 mantras, and you can pull a card, get the energy of the moment, and then use your phone to scan the card, and the mantra starts playing. And that radiant heart mantra is in that song deck card deck, and that was appropriate in that moment. But usually I improvise. Yes. Other questions or sharings?
John is asking, you talked about soul knows what mind does not. Would you expand? I sometimes talk about a person by calling them a soul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. When talking about metaphysical terms, such as mind or soul, there's various schools, and I follow various schools. So it depends on kind of what school you follow in terms of what soul can mean, what mind can mean. And everyone has a different kind of feeling or understanding of that word. So I don't want to get too deep into it right now because it could go in yet a whole other talk about soul and mind. But in the way I used it when I talked earlier is that I personally believe that our vibration here in this body and the thoughts we think are but a very filtered and reduced version that is being able to live moment to moment to moment. But there is a greater energy that we are, which you could refer to as soul, which can also still move on and continue to evolve after you've left the physical body or before you entered the physical body. And with practice, you can start to allow more and more of that greater energy that you are into the moment-to-moment experience, into the embodied experience. And then is when you can get in touch with deeper knowing about what you set out to experience here in this lifetime. And it's nice to be able to do that because you tend then to have a way to not get stuck or too focused on the story, but more on the experience. Compare it to a plate of food. You can have spaghetti and tomatoes and parmesan and minced meat and eat those ingredients, or you can say I'm eating a ragu, I'm eating a spaghetti bolognese, as everyone says except the Italians. So one is the kind of the whole vibration, and the other is the ingredient. So it depends on where you want to be at, I guess. I hope that didn't confuse you more. Maybe just made you hungry.
And Joanne is asking, and if I don't, I'm just going to read the questions. She's asking, I was wondering in the daily practice, do you meet the day?
Do you meet the day? What is meant?
The day? Yeah, what do you mean, Joanne? Maybe if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, like, what a daily practice would look like. Yeah, sorry if that didn't come out right.
That's
But
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question. For me personally, a very good way to be with that sound is to ask for your sound of the moment in the morning and in the evening, because it's a great way to kind of check in with yourself after you slept. Sometimes you dreamt things, you process things at night. And, we often get some sort of a feeling how we get out of bed, with the right foot or the wrong foot. And making that sound is a great way to check in with our feeling in the morning as well as in the evening. And what it will do in the evening, for instance, it will help to be present with all the feelings of the day and the events of the day, and kind of let the dust settle and calm down, and then really a stillness and a peace will find its way, often after just a minute or two or three of sound making. And I found it to be a very effective way for me and for many of my students to do that. And most importantly, whenever something happens throughout the day, so it would happen that I'm in the car and maybe there's a situation in the traffic that kind of jars me, or I receive a text message during the day that is emotionally charged, and I feel thrown off balance, then I will right away use sound as a way to immediately attend my feelings and bring myself back to presence, in alignment. Or when I'm nervous for a certain meeting, I would feel nervous, and I would say, what's the sound of this nervousness? And giving voice to that nervousness again makes it a lot easier to be nervous. When you're in pain, when you have a certain pain somewhere, either chronic, which is quite, I could say a lot about chronic pain, not right now, but if you have a sudden pain, what is the sound of that pain? So there is the ritual, morning, evening, and then there is the moment when it's needed because something happens. I hope that helps.
And there's another question, if you have a bit of time, to expand more about the card deck.
Yes.
I'm curious about the song deck.
Yes, and it would be lovely, Astrid, if we could send an email to everyone who registered, so I can send some links as well. I will send a link of the card deck to everyone, just so that you can check it out for yourself. But it's a very neat little product which actually contains many of the creations that I made still with Upala during our 4 years together. So it's an honoring of that as well. It's a beautiful deck of cards with 36 cards, and similar to oracle cards or tarot cards, you will have an intention or have a drawing of the day, of the moment, and you draw intuitively a card. And there's an illustration on the card, there is a title on the card, and then usually with these type of card decks you would then go into the book and read the message of the card. But what we did is we created an app, the Song Deck app, and you just scan the QR code on the back and boom, right away the mantra or the song that is attached to that card starts playing, and you can enjoy, you can sing along, you can move to it, you can sound to it, you can just enjoy. And then there is also an explanation on the vibration of that card, like your message, why you drew that particular card. I would also like to say a few words on the grief course that Daniela and I developed together for those who are intrigued and interested by this work and do have grief, that you would like to see if you can use your voice to process this grief, to release this grief. I think that course could be very beneficial. Or if you just want to learn about grief in general, it could be very beneficial as well. It's a short, self-paced video course, 4 sessions, 4 2-hour sessions, but it goes deep, it's profound, it's thorough, it's trauma-informed, and I'm really proud of that course. I'm actually very happy because there is the somatic voice work that is in there. There is the framing on what grief is, to understand the energy of grief better. We work with the mind, with all sorts of beliefs that you could hold around grief, around the story you're dealing with. So I think it's quite a unique course out there. And if you're interested, I will put the link in the chat. But we'll make sure also, if Astrid agrees, to send it by email afterwards.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
I don't see any other question. I mean, there's a beautiful statement from Gwenola, and I'm sorry if I don't pronouncing your name right. And she says, if we would learn to live our loss as another song of life, I wonder how this would change our existence. We are wired to be afraid of losing, but I believe we can rewire to embody the beauty of it. And that is so beautifully said. I cannot really add anything to that.
That is beautiful indeed.
Yeah.
Karen, I saw you had your hand up a little bit earlier. Do you still want to say something?
Yeah, I just did want to say that I'm always grateful for your intuitive way of processing things. And I've had a lot of chest pains and grief stuff recently. And the song choice that you made spoke to me very well. And when you said, I had to write it down in 3 places and I have orange marker all over it, is step into the front line of my being. And if there was anything I needed to hear right now, that was it. I have a lot of work to do around that, but thank you so much. I appreciate everything, always. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Oh, and just because it attaches to the idea that grief is not always about the loss of a loved one. It is not always about the loss of health. It's sometimes about the loss of a dream or giving up hope, big changes, anything like that. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for that sharing.
There is another raised hand, and then there's another question in the chat. So let's start with Vicky.
Hi. I am so grateful that I tuned into this today because I live in a very small village, and before Christmas, there was a very shocking death of a very loved member of our village, and very traumatizing to his wife, who's a singer. And oh, I am so excited to share this with her, because part of her experience, which is not unusual, is in her grief. Am I going crazy? No, you're not going crazy. You're grieving, you know. But she's like a musical instrument with her voice, and this could be so healing for her. I am so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. Thank you.
And then, Jakob, there's one question here which relates more to what we do in hospice. In hospice care, what are your experiences singing someone into transitions?
I think you could speak to that also, Astrid, if you want to say
Yes,
something
I could.
first. Yes.
And a few other people here are also part of the threshold choir. I see a few known faces, and then some people I don't know who mentioned they were from the threshold choir. So very quickly, the threshold choir is an international group of singers who send 2 or 3 people at the bedside for people who are in transition. The songs are all created by members of the choir, and they're very simple melodies. It's all a cappella, and we use a lot of harmonies. We also use a lot of humming and oohing a sound. If anybody would like to add anything to that.
Thank you, Astrid. And without going into detail too much, but when Upala was transitioning, there was also a whole group of people making sound around the bedside, which was so special. Yeah, and I think again, if ever you're in a situation and you might wonder, what, I don't know any songs, or just have the intention and allow your voice to be the instrument of your intention. It's not complicated. Any mother who is sounding for her child, any father also, will know this. Your intention is to cradle and be soft. You will not sing ra-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's not gonna. That's not gonna happen. You will be. That's what your voice naturally will do. So if your intention is, what sound, the right question could be like, what sound could I make to help and create a space for this person to transition in peace, in surrender, something of the sorts, and you breathe in, and whatever comes then, whether it's you alone or with a group, that intention is going to work, guaranteed. It's going to create, and you don't need any other agreement on how you're going to sound or what you're going to sound. That intention alone will do the job.
Could I share another wonderful thing? Have you heard of Scientology?
The Church of Scientology?
Scientology.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my ears was. I thought that's a turn of events. No, I have not.
Okay. What I just want to share is we have a friend who's a friend of our Threshold Choir, and he's a harpist. And he did this training in Missouri, I think, years ago. And what they do is when they go to someone who's palliative, they start playing the music in rhythm to their breathing. So maybe they're quite anxious, so they'll start playing there, and then they'll slow the music down, and the breath will go with it, the patient's breath. And if they're there when the person dies, their training is that is a moment of silence as the soul transcends out of the body. And then there's music that they go to after the passing. It's so interesting.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I also feel now that I need to be precise, because the sounding with Upala was not during the transition. It was shortly after. And that somehow indeed feels right before and after, but there might be something to that silence. I think that they're onto something.
And if I may share also here, Joaquinda mentioned that in response to sound, she's Native American and likes to drum people out. So in her tradition, they drum while the person is in the midst of dying, while the person is transitioning. The drumming is a way to accompany the journey, I would say.
And in my humble experience with rhythm and drumming, I come from. I was taught the djembe, which is from the African tradition, and the dundum. So it's not Native American, but I do have experience with rhythm in that regard. It's a very different modality, very different. And there could be said many things about the power of rhythm and the power of drumming, which is something quite unique and different than the sound work, and equally beautiful, powerful in its own way. Yes, and to me that drumming has also is relating also to the various worlds, whereas the sounding for me will create a field in the room, will create a space and allow for the person to have emotional and physiological shifts. The drumming also opens doors and connects ancestral lines, and also has a physiological effect, obviously on the heartbeat and the rhythm, but it's a different thing. So very interesting indeed.
Yeah, and it makes me think of what Kate Munger, who founded the Threshold Choir, often says, is that our singing creates a vibration that the person receives, even when we sing very quietly. And even for people who are very hard of hearing, at the end of their life, they will feel this vibration. So I think it's, we are, somatically wired in a way to express and receive feelings and emotions in that way.
Yes, beautifully said, Astrid. And I see we are at time.
Yeah.
So
and you probably want to have dinner or something. It's getting late.
No,
for you.
it's not because of that, but I always love to respect the time that it was set out.
Absolutely.
But I do want to say this. Somehow this session I did not say so much about the voice. I gave you the practice of the sound of the moment, which feel free to practice that. But I am going to give a new training, actually a course, an experience course that is coming out in April. So if you're interested, join the Songdance newsletter or drop me an email so I can keep you informed or you can specifically the grief course, which is something that you can do right away if you want, which also includes the voice work. So I did want to say that.
Can you finish with a couple of minutes of music?
Absolutely. I would be honored to do that. So before I do, I want to thank you again, Astrid,
Thank you.
for organizing this. Thank you, John, for holding the space and for doing the beautiful work that you're doing. And thank you, everyone, for being here, so numerous, and for taking the time. And wherever you are and wherever you go through, I wish you all the best and a lot of flow with processing the grief and the emotions and being present with it. Thank you. Let's take a last full deep breath into the nose, out to the mouth. Thank you all.